Welcome to Deep or Nothing with Miss Daisy O, the podcast where we explore the art of deep thinking. Join me as we dive into thought provoking conversations that challenge the surface and uncover the profound truths that shape our lives.
Somewhere right now, there's a version of your life that never happened. The relationship that didn't survive. The job you didn't take. The city you almost moved to. Yes, you don't visit it often, but some nights it visits you. And here's the strange part. You grieve it like it was real. You miss people who don't exist. You mourn a version of yourself you never actually got to become. Today, we're talking about that, the future that never happened, and why we hold on to it tighter than we hold on to the one we're actually living. It's season 2, episode 7. No stories today, no characters, just 10 ideas, one after the other, that I need you to sit with slowly. 10 points, one truth underneath all of them. I promise you, I tried to simplify this episode so much so I could communicate my thoughts clearly for everyone to understand. But for some reason, I just wasn't able to get that done. And I know that some of my friends and people in my circle have complained over time that I don't always speak in simple terms and that I use words that may be very philosophical in my statements. And then when I talk, sometimes I may need to simplify it. But for this episode, I'm going to take the risk. I let it flow from my heart, straight from my heart. So this episode might sound a bit philosophical, and I'm really hoping that you still get the message in the midst of everything that we get to discuss today. So let's go there. Before you became who you are, you were 100 other people waiting to happen. Think about it slowly with me. The you that got the course you actually wanted at university, not the one that admission gave you instead. The you that stayed back home instead of relocating. The you that took the government job instead of starting the business. The you that married the person your family kept asking about instead of the one you eventually chose. None of these are wrong versions of you. They're not mistakes. They're not paths you failed to walk. They're simply doors that were once wide open. Doors that you walked past without even noticing you were choosing something else. And here's the truth underneath all of it. The life you're living right now is only one outcome among many that could have unfolded. A human being's sense of what is real is attached to what is true, to what actually exists. Experientially, you can't know a life that you do not live. So think of it like a lottery box. There's only one draw. But before the draw, many other tickets sat quietly inside that box, each one just as real, each one carrying the same chance of being picked, even though only one ever leaves the box. See, the world offers an infinite number of outcomes. A human being is an entity capable of becoming almost anything. But because of the system we're born into, the beliefs that we inherit, a person needs to walk one single continuous journey through their one life. The possibilities were never false. They simply never left the box, like the lottery analogy that I just gave. They never got explored, so they never got a chance to become real. And this isn't true for one person alone. It's true for every human being walking this earth. You could wake up tomorrow, look back on every decision you've made and choose the exact opposite of each one. And somewhere down that road, there is an outcome waiting. An outcome built through almost the very same process you used to build the life you're living right now. You can look at a door in front of you and choose not to walk through that door. It stays there, closed. And you will never know what was behind that door, because the only way to know the truth of a thing is to leave it. To actually experience it, not to imagine it. So understand this very clearly. Every life exists among countless possibilities. yours included. And here's what I really want you to sit with. You're not just living one life. You're living the one life you selected out of an entire crowd of lives that were once just as possible, just as real, just as available to you. Every single decision you've ever made, the small ones, the ones you don't even remember making, all of these decisions quietly closed a door somewhere behind you. You didn't fail the others. You simply walked through one and let the rest go. Most of us never stop to notice that this is even happening. We think we're just living. We don't realize that every day we're choosing, and every choice is a small burial of every other version of us that could have been. And this takes me to my second idea, that human beings become emotionally attached to specific futures. Out of countless possibilities, we tend to become invested in only a few. The systems that shape our growth have a way of narrowing us down, pointing us towards one particular version of who we could become out of all the versions available. And somewhere in the middle of growing up, shaped by school, church, mosque, family, by culture, we start to discover several personalities we could have become. But our growth model, the patterns formed in us over the years, quietly set our eyes on a specific kind of need, a specific desire, a specific future, a particular kind of husband or wife. You know it as your spec, a dream job, a dream location, sometimes even something as simple as a particular car, a house, a particular way a life is supposed to look by a particular year. What gets us invested in these simple realities is not randomness. It's the present knowledge that we've already gathered, patterns we've watched play out around us, expectations we inherited long before we even ever knew we're inheriting them. And here's what nobody warns you about hope. Once hope settles on something specific, the moment you imagine a future clearly enough, your heart stops treating it like a maybe. It starts treating it like a promise. You've heard it at watch night service. By this time next year, you didn't just hear the declaration, you started building an entire year around that declaration in your head. Before the year even began, you've heard the prophecy from the man of God, your husband is coming. You didn't just receive a word. You began decorating a house you don't have yet, for a man you haven't met yet. You didn't just picture the wedding, you started loving the person you'd become at that wedding, the version of you that would finally stop answering, when is it your turn, at every family function. You didn't just picture the visa approval, did you? The relocation, the new life abroad. No. You began loving the version of yourself that would finally send money home instead of always just receiving it. You didn't just picture that promotion at work, the business breaking even, the testimony you'd give in church. You started rehearsing that testimony in your head, the exact words you'd use, the exact way the congregation would respond. We don't just hope for futures. We fall in love with them long before they've earned the right to be loved. And the thing is, you can't lose something you love. Even something that was only ever imagined, without it costing you something real. The third idea in this episode is that expectation gives certain futures more emotional weight than others. Because not every unlived future haunts you the same way. The ones that hurt the most are the ones you expected. You didn't expect to become a professional footballer, so not becoming one cost you almost nothing. But guess what? You expected to be married by a certain age because everyone around you kept a quiet calendar for you, even when you never asked them to. Now, you expected to have arrived by 30 or 35 because that's the age your uncle always used as the marker of your life that has settled. Or let's say, for example, you expected your business to have grown by now because you compared its pace quietly to your guy or your babe, the one whose shop is now like 3 branches, or the one that continues to go from one event to another to speak, while yours is just still finding its feet. Guess what? You expected your parents to grow old, watching you succeed the way that they sacrificed for, and some part of you is still quietly performing a future for them that has not arrived yet. So you didn't expect to become a president of your country at 35. So not becoming that cost you nothing. None of the expectations here were lies. They were reasonable. They were even encouraged. You even maybe worked for it. But expectation is exactly what turns an ordinary maybe someday into a future with real weight, heavy enough to bruise you badly on the way down. That day it doesn't happen the way you were sure it would. So next point, we all need to learn that many emotional struggles are simply responses to lost futures. Some of your sadness was never about what happened to you. It was about what stopped being possible for you. The grief after a relationship ends, one that had already gone on for years, one that your family had already started calling our wife or our husband. That grief isn't only about the person. It's equally about the future you had already settled building with them in your head. That introduction ceremony, the names you'd already quietly chosen for your children, all of it gone without you ever getting the chance to actually live any of it. The heaviness after that job rejection or the one after a visa refusal isn't only about that stamp in your passport or the employment letter. It's about the entire idea behind you having a job you go to every day, coming back home and getting a salary at the end of the day, having a job that defines you and advances your career. It's about the entire relocated life that visa was supposed to unlock. The version of you that would have finally, sighed or exhaled, finally rested. That part of you that would have finally stopped explaining yourself to people who don't understand what you're carrying. The weight after that business closes down isn't only about the money lost. It's about the years lost. It's about the version of you that business was going to turn you into. The one your family would finally stop worrying about. The one who could finally help instead of always needing help, always asking for urgent 2K. All of what we quietly carry, what we call heartbreak or depression or just not being yourself these days, all of this is really just an unlived future, being buried without a proper funeral. Because guess what? Nobody taught us that a future you never got to live is still something worth grieving.
Enjoying the podcast? Follow and turn on notifications for new episodes weekly.
Welcome back to Deep or Nothing with Miss Daisy O.
Now, this next point is one I need you to really hear. Sit with me here. An imagined future never has a bad day. See, imagined futures are never forced to prove themselves. And when I say imagined futures, right, I need you to understand that these are futures that you pictured, not one that you even have an experience of. You see that abroad life you dream about never has a landlord chasing rent in a currency that is stronger than the one you're used to now. Never has you standing alone in a cold that nobody back home will ever fully understand. Never has you missing a naming ceremony because the flight was too expensive on such short notice. The marriage you imagine, right? That marriage, it never argues about money. I don't think anybody sits down and starts imagining themselves getting married and what they're imagining is, oh my goodness, I'm going to be married. My husband is going to cheat on me or my wife is going to be very disrespectful and we're going to argue about money. It never goes quiet for 3 days after a disagreement that neither of you knows how to end. Nobody imagines that when they imagine the so-called future. It never has one person tired and the other person needing more than the tired one has left to give. That business you imagine, it already has staff who never disappoint you. That business you imagine already has customers who never owe you and a bank account that never makes you swallow hard before checking it. You never think immediately about how, the power supply would be so epileptic that having to purchase diesel would be one big thing you have to worry so much about. It never has to compete with the idea of how the infrastructure would need you to always maintain it every day or the amount of loans you may have to take, right, to float the business. The version of you your family is still praying for, still expecting, still watching for, that version never has an ordinary difficult day in it. The kind where nothing dramatic happens, nothing goes particularly wrong. But guess what? You're just tired, you're uncertain, and quietly you're wondering if you're doing any of it right. Imagine futures. They are undefeated for one simple reason, and I'll tell you, they never have to compete. They never have to survive contact with reality, the traffic, the bills, the disappointment, the ordinary days. But you see, real life has to prove itself over and over every single day. Imagine life never has to prove anything at all. And that's not because it's better. It's just because it never showed up to the fight. It's only in your head. It's never been tested. It's just right there sitting in your mind, but you get to deal with another kind of life, your reality, every single day. We're on idea number 6 now, and it's simply how we often replace possibility with certainty. Somewhere along the way, that phrase, "it could happen," quietly becomes, "it should have happened." And "it should have happened" becomes, "it was supposed to happen." You start treating a maybe like it was owed to you. And that's how a simple possibility ends up feeling like a broken promise. Not because life promised you anything, but because somewhere in your own mind, you upgraded the possibility into a certainty. And nobody signed off on that upgrade but you. You were so certain it was going to happen. You were so sure it was going to be given to you. But one thing you need to reinforce every time is this next idea, that the human mind frequently idealizes what it cannot verify. Let me not lie. You will always lose an argument with a future that never happened. For one reason, it has no evidence against it. That job you didn't take, right? It never got the chance to disappoint you. The relationship that ended never got the chance to grow boring or complicated or even hard in the specific ways that real love gets hard. Because you never lived it. Your mind is free to fill in every gap with the best possible version. The unlived life is always more beautiful than the lived one. Not because it actually was, but because it never had to survive being real. And then somehow, alternative futures then compete with present reality. And this is where it gets dangerous. This idea number 8 is where it gets dangerous. That idealized, unverified future doesn't just sit quietly in the back of your mind. You know what it does? It starts to compete. It competes with your actual marriage, competes with your actual career. It competes with the actual life you're building right now with your 2 hands. And it's an unfair fight. Because your real life, your reality has to show up with all of its flaws. And you see the imagined life, right? That one just shows up very flawless every single time. You're thinking about your real life. You're thinking about how hard it is. You're bringing evidence to show that it's hard. Your emotions are as real as possible. You remember so fresh and vividly what's happening in your life right now. But then it gets to compete against the imagined life because it's never had to do anything except be imagined. And you can't win a fair comparison like this against something that was never asked to be real. It just exists in your mind. Now, let me move into this part where I share with you something that might comfort you. It's how every chosen path contains hidden gains and hidden losses. The path you didn't take also had a cost. Many of us don't think about it like that. The only difference is, or the thing is, you didn't have to pay it, so you never noticed. That relationship that didn't work out might have cost you 5 more years before it fell apart anyways. The job you didn't take might have come with its own quiet suffering you never had to experience. I remember I took on a job and I was so excited for the job. I got into the job and I just started falling sick because of the stress that came with the job and how at the time my body wasn't ready for that form of stress. Imagine that I got very sad that maybe I lost the job before it began and I just beat myself up for losing the job, not knowing that if I take the job anyways, I would have fallen ill and then I would have had to quit the job in the end. So what's happening is you're not comparing your real life to a better life. You're comparing your real life with all the flaws that you have in it to a life that was never built for its flaws, because it never got the chance to have any. Like I said earlier, you don't get to test that life against anything. You only picture it in your mind, and it's so beautiful. You have these high expectations and then you have hope. And that's not a fair fight. So here's what I want to leave you with. The very last idea: peace may require releasing ownership of unlived futures. You do not owe the unlived future anything. Not your guilt, not your grief, not a permanent seat at the table of your present life. Yes, you're allowed to let it go. Not because it did not matter, because it was never yours to keep. It was a possibility. You honored it by considering it, but you do not have to honor it by mourning it forever. The life you're actually living, the one with the ordinary days, the disappointments, the real, breathing, imperfect people in the life, that's the one asking for your full attention right now. Just let the other one go. Not with anger, with gratitude that it visited you at all, that you could picture it, imagine it, and just smile about it. You know that thing that they say about how you never know? Sometimes you have to just keep it that way. Like, you know what? I'll never know. So here's what I want to leave you with today. Please stop competing with a future that never had to prove itself. Stop measuring your real breathing life, your imperfect life, against a life that was never required to survive a single hard day, all in your head. Just go live in the one that you actually have. Live loudly, live unapologetically with your full chest in the one you actually have right now. And that's your reality, your present reality. And before we go, I'd like that you sit with this question for the week. What unlived future have I been quietly mourning? And what would it take for me to finally let it rest? And that's it for episode 7 of Deep or Nothing. Please find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe, follow, and turn on your notification for weekly updates. I am Miss Daisy. We don't do surface here. It's deep or nothing.
Let's go deep or not at all.